very important topic. And when I did some research for this particular session, I found out, I looked at, there's a company called Age Wave, and they have an article, Women and Financial Wellness Beyond the Bottom Line. And what they indicated is that only about half of the women feel confident about managing investments compared to more than 2/3 of men. Somehow men are more confident in investing their money. And McKinsey, they've done a research, and it indicates that by 2030, women in the US, they are projected to control most of the $30 trillion in financial assets that baby boomers will possess. And they're also the largest beneficiaries of the transfer of wealth because they live on average 5 years longer than their spouses. So women live longer, and they're going to be managing households. They are single women running households. And even in the Caribbean, even though we don't have the statistics, the situation is not much different here. Women, they outlive their partners, as I said. We have the single women, and they're generally the primary caregivers for aging parents and spouses. So this ends up really with women being the breadwinners of many of the households. So we want to explore, how can we get women, and in particular Caribbean women, to create a roadmap so that they can have some type of wealth management. They can manage their wealth. So they can manage the finances, and how can they be equipped to be financially well? So I am going to start with a question, and it is, what is it that makes women look at money differently to men? And I think that's where it starts. Earlier on, we spoke about money mindset, and I think women look at money differently. So I'm going to start with you, Wendy. What is it that makes women look at money differently to men?
Oh my goodness, there are so many different reasons why women look at money differently, but and can you hear me okay? Am I loud enough? Okay, good. Thank you. I think a lot of it has to do with, maybe more historically than now, a lot of women defer to their husbands. For whatever reason, the husbands take on the role of managing the money, and they don't necessarily confer with their wives. So two things happen. One, they're disconnected from the money decisions. And number two, they don't learn about whatever kinds of things are available to everybody, not just to men, right? So that would be the first thing I would say. The other is women, if they are, or if we are the breadwinner, in my family, that is the case, because we tend to be socialized, at least in the United States, as the caregiver. We have this caregiver mentality and role. We tend to be more conservative if we are in fact making investments. Very often our money is put in lower interest accounts like savings, which if you ever looked at what you earn on a savings account in the United States, it's generally less than half of 1%, which frankly is going to get you nowhere when inflation is 5% or higher. So they're not putting their money in places that grow. They're more conservative. They are distracted with the caregiver roles, whether it's children or whether it's their senior parents. I have that situation in my house as well. I have a 24-year-old son who I'm trying to keep on the right course and get him to save. But I also have a 91-year-old mother who takes up, when I'm not working, that's where I am. And so I think some of I put those things at the top of the list of why women tend to look at money differently. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. I agree with quite a lot of what you said, especially being conservative. I think somehow maybe we have been programmed like that. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Commissioner, High Commissioner?
Thank you, Megan, and delighted as well to share this space with all of these power women. You know, as Wendy was speaking, I thought back to my socialization in church, which is very important, and in the Caribbean context remains important. And I think a lot of the sort of things that shape our perspective as women come from our socialization within the context of the church. I mean, the Bible speaks about the man as the head of the home, and women to defer to their husbands and so on. And I think a lot of times in the Caribbean context, there's this literal interpretation that puts women sometimes in a position of inequality with the male figure in their lives. And although the same Bible speaks about equality of all. So I think in terms of what Wendy said earlier about what makes us think differently, certainly in the Caribbean context, I think religion has a big part to play in how we shape our thinking around these things. I also think as well that within the Caribbean context as well, a lot of people see money and wealth as something that's powerful and masculine and driven. Women who be these demure creatures at home, and that helps to shape it. I'll just say one more thing, because a lot more I could say, but I remember growing up as well, and then in the little nursery rhyme, what a little boy is made of: frogs and snails and puppy dogs' tails. What a little girl's made of: sugar and spice and all. That's nice. And I think they've probably banned it now, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but certainly the socialization around how you define what is the right thing for a woman to be aggressive about, what a male's role should be, have been entrenched in us for generation after generation. And that creates that disconnect in our brain as to how we engage with money. And one last point I'll make: even the newer forms of things like the digital economy, every time I meet someone speaking passionately about Bitcoins and about virtual currency, it's a male, and they speak in a particular type of dominant way about it, and you seldom see women in that space as innovators, although we have the ability. And so it's going to be so important for women to be alive and ready to embrace all things, including newer forms of money in the virtual space. And I think I'll leave that there for now, Megan.
All right, thank you. I remember that that poem that we had to learn, the nursery rhyme, and it didn't quite make sense to me, but hey. So we have realized that a lot has happened in terms of the way women have been raised and socialized. And as High Commissioner Hill has said, our religion might have a part to do with it as well. So it is what it is in terms of our past, but where can women go to get help? So they recognize there is an issue, there's a need, there's a void, there is a situation where they need help. Is there any place that women could go to get help? Alusha?
Yes, good afternoon. Thanks, Megan. Well, as at the Commission, one of our rules is really market development and licensing of individuals and companies to participate on the market. A person, just to give some background, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Market was established in 2001, and it is a regional stock market for the 8 member countries of Eastern Caribbean Currency. I know a lot of persons may not be aware and may not know about it, but it is around, and it does offer opportunities for investment. As part of the market, one of the things that we do is we license persons as investment advisors, and also we license broker-dealers to operate within the space. And I heard that, women have a tendency to not want to take charge of their finances. But in the Eastern Caribbean Securities Market, we have a number of persons who are qualified and licensed to be able to provide you women, especially with assistance in terms of how to go about investing on the stock market, what securities or what investments might be more suited for them based on their long-term objectives and goals. So there are persons who are qualified and licensed, and I will say as well that it's very important that as women, that we invest carefully in what we're doing. I'm not saying that we should be overly conservative, But we do need to take some risks, yes, but measured risks, and we need to understand the investments that we're going into. So it's very important before you do that to engage with someone who is qualified and licensed and have the correct credentials who will be able to assist you. So one of the things that are available in the EC is, as I said, investment advisors. And we recently licensed a team of 2 young women, first ever, Beckles and Regis Consultancy, and they are operating within the region. So you have a team of women that are available to assist with your investing decisions and helping to guide you. Because when you go to the company or the investment advisor, their role is to help you with your financial planning, with your investment decisions. So that option is available for women within the 8 member countries, and of course internationally as well.
Okay, great. Nadia, what about you? Where would women go?
I think where I would want to start, even before we look at where we would go, there tends to be a fear or a lack of trust in the financial system, right? And in the region, we've had a fairly high profile collapse of a fairly large insurance financial services company. And this is something that we can't ignore. As much years that have passed since then, we still come across persons who still cite that as a reason why they don't want to do anything other than save. They see saving as something that is safe, so we have to confront the fear that is there, and we have to then go and seek the expert help. So everything that was just explained. So the same way, if I'm ill, at some point in time, I may be at home making my own teas with the bushes and so on. But at some point in time, I probably need to go and seek some help from a trained medical expert. I would say that's the same thing we need to do with our finances. The advice, unfortunately, available within our own family circle may not be the type that we need to shift us from one platform to the next. So we're gonna have to step out there, trust somebody, be open and transparent about where we are, what we have, to see if we can get some advice to get us on the road.
That is so true. And I like what you said about fear. And I think that probably goes back to the way we were brought up. But, you know, a lot of us, the fear of failure or whatever it is what's keeping us back. Yes, Wendy, please add to it.
Thank you. I think all the points you ladies made, excuse me, are very, very valid, because in the States, right? I do have a Jamaican background. That was something that Megan and I discovered in our early conversation, but I don't know a lot about the investment opportunities outside. But as it relates to getting help, there's some good news. First of all, advisors, as Nadia talked about, come in work with big companies as well as small independents. I work for a smaller broker dealer, fully licensed. And some come with fees and some come without fees. And depending on what you think that fee may mean to you, meaning it makes someone more legit or not, you ask those questions, not unlike, as Nadia said, when you go for a doctor, you've hopefully learned something about that individual before you make that choice, and you ask. So when I was 30 years old, I would say 20 years later than I should have. When I was 30 years old, I reached out because I realized I knew nothing. Didn't get it from my family, didn't get it from school. And I asked somebody, I need help with my money. Who can do this? And she referred me to a woman, which is the point I will finally make, is that more and more women are becoming financial advisors, much like Alucia, is that your name? More and more women, because women like to talk to women. That gives us, I believe, a little more of a comfort level with people who may have the same life experience or the same kinds of fears and concerns. So when you go out to look, find out where they work, understand their firm's history, see if they're women that you can talk to who may have a connection that you can make with them.
And I think that is something we need to do as women. Find the connections, see how we can help each other.
And for women who are looking for work, by the way, firms are dying to have more women and women of color in their, among their ranks. So it might be a career thing for somebody if they actually even want to go into that area.
Okay. Women, you here? All right, so let's look at what would be a roadmap. So we want to talk about getting a roadmap for women so they can be on the path to financial wellness. And as I thought about it, I thought of certain things, and I'm going to throw out what I thought about, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Of course, this is not set in stone, but these are just my thoughts. I think the roadmap for women, it should be where we start off with ensuring that they understand they are financially literate. So financial literacy is important. And then they have to understand planning, financial planning, and the importance of that. And then understand investments and the options that are available. We had a really good session earlier on savings and investment, and Lawrence went into quite a bit of detail on the different types of investments that there are. And then I think women want to be able to retire comfortably. So for me, those would be the main things I would want on my roadmap, where I'm financially literate, I'm making my financial plans, I know my investment options, and that leads me to where I can retire comfortably. I would just love to hear your thoughts on that. Let's start with High Commissioner Hill.
All right, thanks again. Actually, I remember reading a study when I was doing my master's about persons in India, women who were being introduced to aspects of budgeting and being taught how to create a simple budget, and the impact that actually had on the household, where many of these women were actually the primary caregivers and breadwinners, and the impact it had on the children. They were able to feed children better and get them to school better, and it became a virtuous cycle of development for that entire community and that household. And I think that we need to use all of the avenues of society to help to ensure that everybody has access to information about financial literacy. I like to use the context a lot of the church, because that's a background that I'm very familiar with. But I know that lots of faith groups would get involved in what we call stewardship, and they have seminars around how to make a will, how to create a budget, and how to balance your checkbook, and as simple as that is, many people actually operate without a budget. They just spend, and then wonder why at the age of 60 they can't retire. And Mark, we see it a lot in Caribbean society. People just can't retire at 60 because they still have 10 years on their mortgage or 20 years on their mortgage, because somewhere along the line, the process of actually planning, understanding how money works, how easily it goes, and then planning how to use it is not in place. So I think it's important that every aspect of society, the church, the home, the school, the government is actually involved in creating opportunities for people to learn. The credit unions are very good at this. They tend to go into the schools, show the children how you can save a penny, do the calculations around what will happen if you do this amount for over a period of time. And I think we need to, it's a whole of society approach to getting everyone involved in this sort of thing. So in terms of the roadmap, I like the points that you have here. I believe as well that, alongside that, we must ensure that women actually have insurance as well, that because your entire financial roadmap can fall apart if at some point there's an illness of a child or whatever, and then one unique point that I always like to bring up, because at my age now, I don't think I'll be having children. I probably shouldn't say that, but a lot of people who are single and not a mother in the sense of having given birth to children, have to be careful about how their financial roadmap looks, because a lot of people seem to think because you're single, you have an open checkbook and you're obligated to finance the rest of the world because you don't have the same responsibilities as other women who have children have, or whatever. So, and even the tax system in our society tends to operate in that way as well. You get taxed more if you don't have children. But I just wanted to say that it's a process of learning, and we've got to use the whole of society and every level of it to educate people, women especially, girls, starting with girls actually, about how they ought to budget and how they ought to plan for the short, medium, and long term.
Okay, love that. Yes, insurance is so important. Wouldn't you say, Nadia?
Of course, I would say that insurance is absolutely important, of course. Yeah, I think women tend to be the ones that run the home, right? So we know how to stretch to have all of the bills paid and so on. So it means that we are capable. What we have to do is to shift our focus away from the immediate need to a more long-term mindset. Okay, so understanding how that will work then is absolutely, I feel, the very first step on the roadmap. I say start where you are with what you have. We come across people who feel as though they have to be in a role that pays X amount so that you can set aside something, or you feel as though you have to be able to accumulate X amount before you can start. So I say start where you are with what you have and start now. And a good place to start is by seeking out information.
Excellent. I like that. Start where you are. All right. So going back to the roadmap, sticking with you, Nadia, is there anything else you would want to add to that roadmap or expand on? We have financial literacy, financial planning, investment options, insurance, and retirement.
Okay, well, since right now I'm in the area of pensions, let me go there. Remarkably, we do come across many people who don't think about retirement until maybe about 10 years out. And if you wait until that kind of time frame, it's going to be very late. Okay. Some things that you want to bear in mind: income is likely going to be less than you have now. That's another fact that people are often not aware of. So whatever you're earning now, if you calculate a pension on that, it's not going to be as much as you would get in a take-home salary. You have the issue of inflation. What is inflation? It simply means that if right now to buy a liter of milk, it costs $3, in the next 20 years, you may have to pay $4. Okay, so you have income that is reducing and expenses that are increasing. And many tips will say to you, well, one of the things you can do down the road is to reduce your expenses, right? But there are some expenses that you cannot avoid. And we don't just want to retire, but we want to do it in style, right? So we want to be able to live our best life. We want to travel. We want to go with our friends and things like that. So you have to think about the fact that you're going to live long. You have to think about, do I want to leave anything? Okay, do I have any children or nieces or charity that I'm involved in? Would I want to leave anything for them? Am I going to have access to liquid assets? So I may own a home, but there's the fact that I own that home, is that going to help me to be able to pay for things, right? I need assets that I can convert into cash, right? So these are things that you need to think about. And I guess we're going to keep going back to the fact that you have to seek help. You have to seek an expert and sit down, have a plan in place in terms of, I have some insurance, but is that insurance enough? Okay, I may get something from the social security program. How much would that look like? If I add that to the pension from like an employer or a private plan, is that going to be enough for me?
Yep. And those are conversations we need to have as early as possible as women. Well, as women and men, but especially as women who are in charge of a household, or even as High Commissioner Hill said, a single woman with no children. When
And
I
it's
was-
just, sorry, just one thing, a thought just crossed my mind. I had a case a time where a lady's husband passed away. And at that point in time, she realized that she did not know anything about the finances. She had no idea where his pension, which bank, what was the account number, how much it was going to be, whether it was going to be paid then after he had died and so on. So I think one thing I would really like to say today, aside from planning and so on, is for ladies who are in a situation with a partner, is to have open and transparent conversations about what is the state of our finances. You should have all the information. You should know which bank, you should know the account, you should know whose name is on the account. You should have all of that information so that if anything tragically happens, you're able to just proceed on with life without having to go through a whole exercise to be searching.
I guess that's part of the talking. We have to be communicating more with our spouses, with our children. Might be sometimes, the children, young adult children who might be the ones who might be in charge of the home or assisting with the home. And we need to have the conversations so that we don't end up with, somebody passing and there is absolutely no clue about what's happening. So that's very important. I didn't have this on my proposed roadmap when I spoke initially, but I just want to hear your thoughts, Wendy, on leaving a will. And how important is that?
Oh, wow. I was just thinking about it as you said it. A will and a trust, actually, both of those go hand in hand, are very, very important. Basically what it does is or those two things together, protect your investment so that it goes to the people that you want it to go to once you've left this earth and, met our maker. But it also keeps, at least in this country, it keeps the courts out of the pocket of the person who is leaving that money. I know you have heard how there are always, what is it, Prince, the singer? I don't know if you guys know some of those artists, Prince, Aretha Franklin, and there may be one other. It's not coming to my mind right now. They died, and their net worth was huge, and they had no will in place. And so now the courts are all involved. And it could be 2 years before the people who would be the beneficiaries of the earnings and the savings that these folks had will ever be able to benefit from it. So you have to protect that savings, virulently. And a will and a trust is how you do that. It's a legal document that says, here's what you have, and here's who it's going to go to, and when. The when is almost as important as the first two. I don't know if anybody else has any perspective on that. And the only other thing, if you don't mind, my just touching base on the roadmap you were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
What we do at our firm is all about a roadmap. We create roadmaps for people, not because we have a love of creating roadmaps, but because if you don't know, what is it, the term, if you have a goal without a plan, it's only a wish. Mm-hmm. So you have to know your point A, and then your point Z, and then all the points in between. And we keep talking about retirement as the end point, but I will tell you, when I talk to people every day, they're redefining retirement all the time. It's not that people want to necessarily stop work, sit on a couch, watch TV, and eat bonbons, which may sound nice to some people. That would bore me to death. And then there are some people who want to travel the world, or there are people who want to start a new career. And at the end of the day, like myself, I want to work. I don't know how long I'm going to work, but the plan is till at least age 70, but on my terms, which is why I have my own practice. So retirement is not necessarily about funding life without work. It could be a whole bunch of things. And I think the questions that I think Alucia, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, that you were saying about how you can go to advisors. I think an advisor's job is to understand, what do you want? When do you want it? And then we're like, so this is what you probably need to do to have a good chance of getting what you want in the way that you want it in retirement.
Very
Megan,
interesting.
if I may
Go ahead.
just, yes, I think just to put things in perspective, for a lot of young women who join the workforce in the Caribbean islands, you find that they start off from a position of liability. You have student loans, you have gone to university, you're starting off from a point of negative or zero. So I think this panel is very useful in that it provides some good information for them to be able to know where to go for help, and also how they can improve their own finances. And going back to what you said about the roadmap, I think what I would add to that is know your numbers. Know your numbers, meaning what is my net worth? What is my assets minus my liabilities? How much is that? I think that is something that is very important. That is a critical starting point. And when we're looking at financial resilience and creating wealth, not just having money in a bank account, accumulating interest, you need to know, what are my assets, what are my liabilities, and how do you adjust, for inflation, how do you adjust, to increase and improve your wealth. The other one is your net cash position. And that comes from budgeting, of course, and having an operational plan. I like to look at it as an operational metric. How can I improve my cash position? Because when in terms of if you need to increase your assets, obviously you need cash to do that. So having an idea or knowing what those two numbers are, I think is a basis or a starting point for a lot of people, especially young persons who are coming into the workforce very early, very young, with a lot of debt, already saddled with a lot of debt.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, Megan, I just wanted to just re-emphasize the point about where we start our roadmap and how early do we start a roadmap. And some things, of course, would apply to people when they enter the workforce. But I want to go back to young girls, to girls in primary school and secondary school who are still primarily reliant on their parent or guardian, that we need to ensure that this financial literacy, this financial planning, the understanding of investment, of retirement, of pensions, doesn't wait till they're 25 or 28, but it starts as soon as they can understand the value of a dollar, of a coin, and how the best use to put to it. As we're going to end up with a cycle where lots of women are still behind because no one took the time to do that. And again, I go back to the importance of getting, if the mom knows, the mother knows, she will probably pass it on to all of her children, male and female. And it's important that we get that happening at as early an age as possible, consistently.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yep. Yep. All right. So I want to just ask about one last thing. The time is really up, sorry. Investment options in the Caribbean. it's a little difficult, or there aren't that many, at least that I know of. I'm going to ask Nadia and then Alusha, what would be the general, I mean, I'm not, of course, you're not advising anyone on this panel, but if someone just wanted some general ideas as to where could they go for investment options, what would you say?
Yeah, yeah. I caught some of the session earlier, which was very thorough in terms of the saving versus investments. Unfortunately, in the region, and Lucia could speak to this, our stock exchanges are not very active. We don't have the experience of our citizens actively trading in stocks. So I guess things like credit union investments is probably one of the more primary options that people tend to use. And so I really want to defer to Lucia on this, because within the EC region, there is easier access in my mind in terms of being able to trade and to get onto that exchange. And I think that could be a very good option to explore.
Thanks, Nadia, for that, bringing me in here. One of the things I want to see is for women, especially investors, I think one of the products that would work, investment products that is suited for women, is what we call mutual funds or collective investment schemes in our part of the woods. The reason for that is these types of investments are pooled investments, and they are essentially, what they do is collect funds from a number of people, large parts of the population, and they would invest in a diversified portfolio of securities. They also have the advantage of having these funds professionally managed without having to pay exorbitant fees. And also you get the benefits of risk diversification because of the fund's ability to invest in a wide range of securities. So there's something that we call in portfolio management where I think it's about correlation, where you have a basket of securities with a number of different types of securities in that pool or in that portfolio. The probability of all of them going bad at the same time is lower than if you were to invest in just one type of security. So I'm happy to say that the CSRC recently authorized a mutual fund or collective investment scheme for sale within our jurisdiction, and we're looking at bringing in some more. So we're looking at expanding and diversifying the options, the investment options that are available for our population on the securities exchange. And I think one of the areas that one of the investment instruments that I think would be most suited, very suitable for particularly women investors, for all of the reasons that we have spoken about today, is mutual fund or collective investment scheme.
Great, awesome. Well, I don't know where the time went, but I'm being told we have gone over time, and we want to see if there are any questions from our audience. So now is the time. If you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A or put them in the chat room, and we will have our esteemed panel answer your questions. And as we wait on the questions, I just want to summarize what we have said, especially in terms of the roadmap. Well, one of the things that I think it was Nadia who said we should have a long-term mindset. And I think that is so very important. Let's not just focus on the here and now, but let's think further into the future, as in let's get our retirement plan in motion from early. Alusha, knowing your numbers, that's so important, because it's in knowing your numbers that you'll be able to make certain decisions. And the roadmap, we're saying you need to be financially literate. You need to be planning. You need to have financial planning. You need to understand the investment options. And I'm really glad that you mentioned there are some other products that are coming out, because I do believe in the OECS, there is a need for more products, investment products, to be available. And we need to ensure that we can retire comfortably. And of course, insurance. I know in certain parts of our region, people consider insurance a bad word, but it's important. And it's a part of your investment as well. And I just hope that we've been able to provide some pointers to women who have the responsibility of managing their household, to recognize that they can get on a path, they can create a roadmap towards their financial wellness. I don't see any questions, and we are just about over time. So I'm going to take this opportunity to just ask all of our panelists just to leave us with one little insight or tip, or one thing you want us to remember from this session. So we start with our High Commissioner, Karen Mayhill.
Thank you. I'll just say that I just like this notion of information and putting yourself out there, that you can get information and not be scared of it, understanding you know, what it's all about. And I think I want to just leave that. I think everyone was saying that, you know, embrace opportunities to get that literacy, that understanding, so you can then make good decisions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Let's go to Wendy.
Okay, so I would want people to walk away from this knowing that taking action is probably something they must do. You know, if you sit back and just learn and don't do anything, it doesn't really help you at all. Start with educating yourself, you know, finding whether it's an advisor or sources of information, so you can start your financial literacy on a positive path. And what we say at our firm is we help people not only save money, so learning how to save is a muscle. It's almost like muscle memory. Learn how to save, and then figure out some of the best ways to grow your money, but also figure out ways to keep what you save, right? And to keep what you grow. Those combinations of things combined in that map should have a very positive outcome.
Thank you so much. So you're telling persons they need to commit. They need to talk, they need to learn, they need to commit.
And they need to do. That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Nadia?
Well, since it's March, I'm going to say I am woman, hear me roar. So, you know, we are capable, we're smart, we can do it. So go back to start where you are with what you have and start now.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. That is so true. And I'm so glad you mentioned Women's Month, because we're going to be focusing a lot on women during the month of March. So for those of you who follow Liquor Bite Ideas, we'll be having quite a few women featuring during the month of March. So Alusha, we end with you.
Thanks, Megan. I just want to leave our audience with one word: REIGN, R-E-I-G-N. And the R stands for retain. What is your retention strategy when it comes to wealth? How can you protect what you have? E, earn. How can I diversify my income to increase or maximize the income that I have now? Can I get a side job? Should I ask for a raise in salary? I, invest. What can I invest in? Investing can involve not just thinking about the stock market, but also other types of investments. And I spoke about one of those. Grow. G is grow. Having invested your money, how will I grow it? What sort of asset allocation strategy will I use to grow my money? And of course, here you can have the assistance of investment advisors and of course your broker dealer. And N is nurture. Have systems in place to track everything, which brings us back to the whole planning and budgeting. So that's what I want to leave. That's the message I want to leave with the audience.
Reign. And you know, for women, we're queens, so we should reign. Absolutely. So I love that. Thank you so very much, Ladies, you are quite a powerhouse. I thank you. I know you all have been busy, and I thank you for giving us the time to come and talk about women and how we can get onto the road to financial wellness. So thanks so very much. I appreciate you all, and enjoy the rest of the conference. So
Thank you
this
so
is
much.
the end. This is the end of this session. We wish to advise that you go back to the lobby and end the session, go back to the lobby and join the next session, which is environmental wellness. Thank you so much.